block east.
Not super savvy.
We're waiting for it to be 6 on someone's clock. Ready? I'm just going to do it. I'd like to call to order the Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority Board meeting for Wednesday, June 28th. I can't even read that. At 6 p.m. Please note the roll. Vice President Baker.
Here.
Secretary Thompson.
Present.
Director Anderson. Not here. Director Flores.
Here.
And Director Kirkland.
Here.
And I am here. All right. Item 3, citizen communication. Any citizen wishing to speak during citizen communication regarding an item on or off the agenda may do so after completing the registration card. And I have one person signed up to speak, and Mayor Christine Delisle of Leander.
Good evening. I was just in the area. I thought I would drop by tonight. It's been about a year, I think, since I was last here, and I just wanted to come and say hello and thank you all very much for our partnership. As you know, this is all very important to Leander, and we love you guys. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. I have no other citizens signed up to speak, so we'll move on to item 4A, consider approval of the BCRUA meeting minutes for April 26, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to presentations. Item 5A, consider a presentation on the Phase 2 raw water delivery system. Ms. Bondi.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, board members. It's been 2 months since we've met officially, so I thought we would start out with an update on and a presentation on the Phase 2 raw water delivery system. And so I've asked our engineer, Aaron Archer from Walker Partners, to give you an overview, and please feel free to ask any questions about the project that as he makes his presentation.
Okay. Good evening, Madam President and Board. I'm excited to give you a in-depth update on the status of construction for the Phase 2 raw water delivery system. To kick it off, I want to start by reviewing the status of the schedule and cost for the project. We're, of course, in the grand arc of this project, still kind of at the beginning, with notice to proceed having been issued in June of last year. But we are now, as of last week, over a year into construction, which puts us roughly at 21% complete. And then we will complete the project still in April of 2027. The contractor is currently on schedule for an on-time completion of the project. On a cost basis, the total contract value was originally just under $225 million. And based on the applications for payment that have been processed as of the end of May, we're right at about 50% or $50 million or 22% of the contract. And happy to report there is currently no change orders on the project. So now I want to spend the rest of the presentation with a number of slides showing some photographs walking through the status of construction at the main work sites for the project. And we'll start by looking at the pump station site, which is on Lime Creek Road, adjacent to the Cedar Park Water Treatment Plant. After the contractor prepped the site, the critical path of the project runs through the work at the pump station site. And the first major activity that needed to be completed was construction of the main construction shaft, which is the deep 300-foot deep, 30-foot diameter hole that the contractor is using to construct all of the underground work, the tunnels going both directions. And you can see some photographs here. The main shaft for the project has been completed. The excavation has been completed, and the contractor also completed the final cast-in-place concrete liner as they excavated down to complete the main shaft. Once the contractor finished up with the main shaft, they moved over to start working on what we call the suction chamber. And the suction chamber is a large horseshoe-shaped cavern underground that will be used to withdraw water from once the pump station up above has been completed. It's about 100 feet long, 30 feet tall, and about 30 feet wide. The contractor completed that excavation with a road header, which you can see in the upper right-hand photograph. It's got 2 rotating cutting tools on it with a boom that allows them to achieve the horseshoe shape for that large cavern. And the contractor has also completed the suction chamber as of about mid-May. And since then, they've been pivoting their attention over to working on the transmission tunnel shown here in gold, which is the tunnel that goes back across the lake. It will eventually connect the pump station over to the existing 78-inch pipeline that was installed in Phase 1 on Trails End Road. It's 2,600 linear feet of tunneling. It'll be constructed by a tunnel boring machine. The tunnel boring machine has been delivered to the site and named Miss Chelsea by the underground construction group. It has been assembled now underground, and as of last week, they have started mining for the transmission tunnel. They anticipate needing up to about 3 months of time to complete the tunnel, but based on some of the progress they're making here early as they dial in the tunneling operation, they're likely to be able to complete this first tunnel more quickly than that. Once they get across the lake, they will arrive with the tunnel boring machine at what we call the Trails End Road shaft. And this is a vertical shaft that will be constructed to bring the pipeline back up to grade so we can connect it to the existing pipeline on Trails End Road. That shaft has been constructed. It's 130 feet deep and a 10-foot diameter. You can see the pile top rig and the photograph to the right that was used to construct that shaft by blind bore method. They also completed a fairly significant secant pile wall around this structure to provide support in the overburden. And right now the contractor is preparing to install that riser pipe into this shaft. So they'll get that installed, they'll grout it in place and tunnel up to it to make the connections. Once the contractor has completed the transmission tunnel, they will turn their attention to the much longer intake tunnel, shown in blue. The intake tunnel will connect the pump station to the intake riser pipes out in Lake Travis. It's about 9,000 feet long, and they will construct it also with that tunnel boring machine. They will go through a fairly laborious process of walking it back out of the transmission tunnel once it's been completed, flipping it around and getting it oriented to mine the intake tunnel. And they're expecting on this longer tunnel to need about 9 months to complete it. In the meantime, there has also been a significant amount of work occurring at the intake site in the adjacent maintenance building onshore. Out in the lake, the contractor mobilized a very large flotilla to start excavating the shafts for these intake pipes that will be grouted in place in the lake bed and that the contractor will eventually tunnel up to make connections. For both of these 2 intake riser pipes, the contractor set a boring template and were able to erect a casing pipe to bore by blind bore method each of these intake riser sections. You can see that same pile top rig that was used over at Trails End Road being used for this operation as well. At this point, the contractor has completed excavation of both of those shafts, and they're demobilizing a bunch of the equipment used to construct the shafts so that they can prepare to place the riser pipes in each of these 2 shafts in the lake bed, which is work that we anticipate occurring probably in the late July timeframe. And once they have completed that work, they will have done what I think is the most difficult marine work on the project. And that was a little bit of an interesting issue on the construction of the intake. This was something that they originally were going to do later in the project, or perhaps would have been required to do later in the project because stainless steel availability was kind of an issue when the project was bid. But that supply chain has calmed down, and the contractor looked at this work and wanted to take advantage of the lake being low. There's not a lot of things we cheer for with the lake being low, but construction of the intake was something that really benefited from a low lake. And then onshore, adjacent to the intake, you can see the marine operation out in the lake. The contractor has been working on the foundation for the maintenance building. this work is not on the critical path, so they complete it as crews are available and shift their resources over to this location from time to time to work on it. So looking forward for the next 6 months, the major activities a contractor will be working on is completing the mining of the transmission tunnel. They'll install the vertical riser pipes at Trails End Road and for the intake. They'll start working on mining the intake tunnel, and some preliminary plans are they may also start installing the liner on the transmission tunnel at the same time. So there'll be some very complex operations occurring simultaneously at the pump station site. And then they'll keep working on the maintenance building as they complete this other work. And unfortunately, my next bullet got cut off, but we do anticipate over the next 12 months about $60 million of payment applications coming from the contractor, which would take the cumulative total up to about $110 million for the project. I did also want to note that we did have a productive last 2 days with the contractor. We completed a risk management workshop where we go in about twice a year to update the risk register for the project with the contractor's team and huddle up in a room for a day to evaluate the status of some of those risk mitigation measures. And then this morning we completed an executive partnering meeting with the contractor as well, just to look at the work that's been performed over the last 12 months and continue to explore opportunities to improve the project. So that is the end of my slide deck. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions about the project, and I do promise we would like to get all of you down to the tunnel and go down the shaft. It is extremely hot down there right now. That might be a really great trip in a couple of months, but we could start working on getting that scheduled as well.
Hey, just a curiosity, the picture that we're looking at, so what is that, what did you call that room, and what does it function for? Because I guess I just imagined all the pipes would connect all the way straight to the pump house. So what is this?
This is the suction chamber. So as water flows into the project from the intake tunnel, it'll come to this suction chamber, the large horseshoe-shaped chamber. And in the crown of this chamber, there'll be individual shafts drilled for the pumps. So the pumps will be placed in individual shafts, taking suction out of this chamber.
So this acts like a big underground pool?
Kind of like a big underground reservoir, yes.
Okay. And then, again, just curiosity, so the pipe that runs from the intake to this location, either now or later, I'd just be curious what a cross-section looks like. Is the pipe going to have room around it that people can go in there and check for maintenance, or does the pipe fill the entire bore area?
So for the intake tunnel, which is the larger 9,000-foot tunnel, that will be a cast-in-place concrete liner, a little bit over 12 inches thick. And so there will be no space around the outer wall of that liner and the rock that has been mined out by the TBM.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Renee? Yeah, so thank you for the update on that. Just more curiosity questions as well. So on a good day, the tunneling, how much progress is being made in a good day if everything went well?
They are anticipating, there's always a learning curve when they get the tunnel boring machine assembled and they start working on, they've got a whole fleet of mechanics and operators that try to figure out what the right amount of pressure is to drive into the rock. We consider this rock as, the layperson would say this is very hard rock. The tunneling industry would call this a relatively soft rock. They anticipate, once they've kind of worked out the kinks, and keep in mind they are working continuously, virtually 24 hours a day, that they would do anywhere between 100 and 200 foot a day.
Really? Okay. And then remind me again, and I know we've been told this in the past, but I forget. So the deep water intake, that allows us to take water as if the lake level goes to what?
That would allow us to withdraw water with the lake going down to an elevation of about 560.
And present elevation today?
The elevation today is about 637.
And then
And
normal is
below
681?
560, there's just a few % of lake capacity left. It's, for all intents and purposes, a river at that point.
Okay. And then so far, no concerns from the residents around where all the construction work is going on?
I believe the contractor has been doing a really good job of outreach and communicating with residents, particularly at Trails End Road. There's a large work site at that location, and in the village of Valente. They've been in regular contact with elected officials at the village of Valente, and We get routine complaints from time to time that go through the contractor or through our construction management team, primarily about things like speeding. And so they work with their crews to make sure that they maintain their speed through those public roadways to the construction sites. They occasionally coordinate with Travis County to do partial closures of Lime Creek Road in nighttime hours to bring large deliveries down to the pump station site, and that coordination has been going really well.
Good. Thank you, sir.
They made some significant improvements to the park at the Trails End Road Homeowners Association, so I think that.
That was an agreement that they reached with the HOA at that location to extend their limits of construction in exchange for doing some major improvements, including extending their boat ramp.
So just remind me, I knew this number at one point. What is the lowest level the lake's been in historical drought?
614.
614? Oh, all right. And it's good that they close Lime Creek every now and then. It slows down the racers down there, so it's probably good for the neighbors.
And one more curiosity question. As y'all are tunneling, if you come across a cavern or a void, whatever the right word for it is, do y'all just punch a pipe through that? Do you need to fill it with concrete? What do you have to do there if we come across that?
So we think encountering a void in this particular geology is a very, very low probability. Up higher in Edwards limestone, that would be something that you would expect, but down where we are beneath the Edwards and Glen Rose limestone is very tight. And we have a lot of borings, I think, that support that. But nevertheless, we do baseline certain conditions that we tell the contractor to expect as they do their tunneling operation. And if it's different than that baseline, then we talk about a differing site condition. If they encounter a void, the first thing they'd have to do is report that back to us so that we can evaluate it.
Okay, thank you.
I also want to mention that Walker Partners is hosting a website for the project that has a lot of information on it, and it's on the homepage of BCRUA.org, if you want to refer anyone to that.
And we keep that relatively well up to date, especially in regards to road closures.
All right, anything else?
Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, item 5B, consider a presentation regarding BCRUA operations.
Thank you, Madam President. Since the board approved our transferring the operators to Round Rock, I wanted to give you an update on how we're doing on staffing. So that transition went very well. I have to commend Round Rock HR. They spent a lot of time with our staff and kind of showed the benefits were slightly different. So they, but when I asked the operators, they felt like they were satisfied with the benefits, and so that's going well. We had our superintendent retire with that transition, so we, the operating committee, interviewed several folks, and our initial selection had got a better offer from the company he was currently working for, so he declined. But we have promoted Brian Forgas, who was our operations supervisor at the plant, and he's been there for 6 years, and he's doing a great job. So we got that position filled, which then left his position open, and so we filled that, and with an operator that had been working for Cedar Park, but basically this was a promotion for him, so everybody thought that was going to work out okay, right? And then we also have made an offer to a system mechanic, and then who also is an employee of Brown Rock, but he's only been there a couple weeks. And then we also have hired another treatment plant operator who hadn't worked for any of the cities. I have to say that it's really a two-way street, as one of the cities also hired one of our senior operator, but they gave him a promotion to a superintendent. So I think that's just part of the partnership, right? We all share it. And I do need to commend both Cedar Park and Round Rock who have water treatment plants and were able to lend us some staff in our time of need. So that's really was helpful. So we are definitely having a challenge with getting applicants for the water plant operator position. We will hire somebody who doesn't have a license, but assuming that they get the license within a certain period. But we really need operators that have licenses, and they just haven't been forthcoming. So Round Rock did send out a postcard to all the licensed operators in Texas. So I think we might have we got an application today from somebody from the Seabrook area, so who had an A license, so it might be working. I did also use a recruiter. That's how I got the one operator that I did hire. So it's going to be a challenge, but we'll keep looking at it. And the other surrounding utilities are also trying to poach our employees. In fact, one of our longtime employees got an offer that we couldn't match to go to Lakeway Mud. And then Lakeway Mud was also trying to hire another one of our employees, but we managed to convince him to stay. So we'll have to be vigilant and do a good job and make sure we're paying the market, which I know Round Rock does yearly market studies. But we're good for now, and we hope to get better as we keep adding to our staff. In terms of the plant operations, as you know, we have started construction on the next expansion of our water treatment plant, Phase 1D. And the first thing off the bat we had to do, because Phase 1D actually adjoins the Phase 1C water basin, we had to take Phase 1C out of service. Now, we had planned for that to happen in May, but the Water Development Board took a month longer than we expected. And we also didn't expect, the kind of weather that we're having in June. So we know that all the cities are wanting to use a lot of their water, and so we've worked together, and Round Rock has offered some of its water in case Leander needed some additional. And over the time period we've been down, that's only happened one time, just during a peak hour. But right now, the treatment plant flows are, Leander's using only about 60%, Cedar Park's using about 20%, and Round Rock also is using about 20%. So we expect to be able to refill that basin on over the weekend and get back to normal on Monday. That's all I had, unless anybody has any questions. Yes.
So just one thing, you already alluded to it, but based on hiring, and I know all of us are having issues with hiring and filling positions, but I would ask that you keep this board abreast of, where you're at on that. And the market study is important, I think, to all of us to make sure that we're staying competitive for Central Texas. So if you would just make sure that we know what issues you're having to deal with moving forward with that. So.
I had a similar question. I was curious to license an employee, what's that time frame and what's the cost involved? I mean, is that something we need to grow our own and
Yes, we do want to have some licensed operators, because the unlicensed operators can't work by themselves. So the recent employee we hired has experience at a water treatment plant, but needs to take classes and take the test, and we expect that to be about a 2-year period. But that person will work during the day, and then, so side by side with a licensed operator, and then, at the end of the 2 years, we'll be able to move them to a shift that doesn't have one. But, it's been great. Whenever we need help, we just reach out to the cities, and they're willing to send somebody over. And so that's one of the maybe not anticipated benefits of the partnership.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, you have one more position that's open that we need to fill?
There are 3 open operator positions.
Thank you.
And then our new positions that we'll talk about in our budget, we filled one of the mechanic positions, and then we have a senior mechanic and a IT person, but we also have, Cedar Park is providing mechanics for us until we get that filled, and then we have a consultant that's doing our IT, so we've got that covered.
So that's a important, it seems like there's a lot of moving pieces between different cities. People are taking jobs with, not only taking jobs with other cities, but MUDs and the BCRUA, and which puts stress on those organizations where the person left. If it takes 2 years to train somebody and a city's invested in that employment, I kind of worry that, and with what seems like a very, very difficult hiring process from what I'm hearing, my concerns are filling positions for not just Cedar Park, but also Round Rock and Leander, as well as BCRUA, and trying to figure out how we can put a program in place to get these people trained so that all of us have the necessary people to perform the responsibilities within our communities.
Yes, well, the best type of training that we're having is basically on-job training. So they'll start, with some working side by side as with a licensed operator. And I think the postcard idea of reaching out to every licensed operator, the applicant we got today has an A license. And so, but I think the idea of moving to this area is attractive. Round Rock did just get voted one of the most best places to live, and I know Cedar Park and Leander both have a similar reputation, so I do think we will be attracting people from other areas to come here.
All right. It sounds like a sound recruiting project because I get about a postcard a day, so that's how it's done. Resolutions. Consider a resolution approving the BCRUA quarterly investment report for January 1st, 2023 to March 31, 2023. Mr. Klosterberger.
Good evening, Madam President and board members. My name is Kevin Klosterberger. I'm the Finance Director here in the City of Cedar Park. Tonight I have for you just a few highlights. I don't have a presentation, but a few highlights I will talk through with you from our quarterly investment report. I believe it's in your packet. I'm going to begin starting on page 4. That page should be labeled Portfolio Summary Management Report. Our BCRUA investment portfolio at the end of March 31st, 2023 has an ending book value of $159,583,976. This is slightly up from the amount reported to you last quarter. Our average yield for the period ending again March 31st, 2023 was 4.008%, which is just slightly behind the average yield on the 2-year Treasury note over the same period, which was 4.34%. Our WAM, or weighted average maturity, for this period was 128 days, comfortably within the maximum WAM set forth by our investment policy of 365 days. If you will flip one page past page 4 onto page 5, there's a few charts on there, including an allocation of our assets by investment type, showing that 48.3% of our investments are in banks and pools. That same 48% is there at the bottom of the maturity distribution by time invested, showing that 48% is invested overnight, 45% is invested within 1 year, and we have 6% invested at a duration of between 1 and 2 years. The last item I wanted to point out before I answer any questions you may have is on the following page. You flip to page, I believe it's page 6. You'll see there, kind of 2/3 down the page, total earnings fiscal year to date is $2,394,004.64. The raising interest rate environment, we're definitely seeing that hitting our our earnings from our investment pool. And that I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right, item 6B, consider a resolution authorizing the president to execute the, we have action, so sorry. Resolution is before us to accept.
Motion to approve
Investment.
6A.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, 6B, consider a resolution authorizing the president to execute the First Amendment to the interlocal agreement regarding water treatment superintendent operator services.
Thank you, Madam President. We just talked about the fact that the operators for BCRUA have moved from employment by Leander to the city of Round Rock, and that happened through an interlocal agreement that was, the board approved in March. And this ILA replaced the similar ILA that between BCRUA and the city of Leander, and it was intended to use similar contract language. However, the invoicing of the labor charges was stated inaccurately in the new interlocal agreement and needs to be revised. The Leander ILA had stated that the charges will be calculated for each employee using the employee's hourly pay rate times a 1.5 multiplier. And that multiplier was intended to cover benefits and overhead costs. However, the invoicing language that was actually included in the Round Rock ILA states that the charges would be calculated using the employee's pay rate times a 1.5 multiplier plus benefits. So it was basically double charged the benefits. So we know that was an error, administrative error. We apologize for that. But this First Amendment revises the language to better reflect the language from the previous Leander ILA. And this amendment will also require approval by the city of Round Rock. So you all will be seeing it again.
Okay. All right, any questions? All right,
Motion to approve.
Second?
all right, a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 6C, consider a resolution approving the BCRUA annual operating budget for FY 2023 to 2024, subject to the approval of the participating cities.
Thank you, Madam President. We tried to bring the next year's budget to the board for approval in June so that each city can then incorporate it into your budget. Of course, we're 6 months into the budget, so it doesn't leave us a lot of actual expenses to use as a benchmark but for the next year. But BCRUA is pretty consistent in the itemized charges, so it's really not that much of an issue. But to that point, we have 6 months in expended 35% of our actual budget. So this budget, first we ask each city to tell us how much average water treatment plant flow that they want to plan for the next year. And so we did that. And this budget's based on a total of a 13.3 million gallons per day projected use. The previous budget was based on 12.3 million gallons per day. So we went up 1 million gallons per day, or about 8% increase in growth. Cedar Park increased their previous 2 million gallons per day budget by 0.2 million gallons per day, or actually, I said that wrong. It was 1.8 million gallons per day, and they've increased it to 2. Leander actually decreased theirs by 0.2, so it was 7.6 million gallons per day, and this is, 8 million gallons per day, and this is now 7.8. And then Round Rock increased theirs by 1.5 MTD to 3.5, from 1 million gallons per day to 3.5. So overall, we have an 8% increase in flow. Now, the total operating budget is $5,130,224. That includes contingency and reserve, and that's a 19% increase over the FY '23 budget. About 85% of that increase is due to increase in power, chemical, sludge handling, and fuel and oil. And then operator labor and merit increases, like I had described to you previously, the addition of the 3 maintenance staff. So just drilling in a little bit on these budget increases, our cost of power, chemicals, and sludge disposal increased by $299,000. Chemical costs went up significantly, and that's likely due to a supply chain issue. The power costs, well, PEC did raise their rates, but they also started charging a reserve cost for use of their substations. So that was really, like I mentioned, most of the cost. There were, the labor costs were $352,000, including a budgeted 6% merit increases, and then the 3 new maintenance staff. We had some decreases as we are hiring staff for our maintenance positions. We're decreasing the cost of the consultants that we had to do that work previously. The only other real significant thing I want to mention is I had talked to you before about BCRUA as we're maturing, and I think a lot of these costs are really could be attributed to our becoming more an important part of the fleet of the city's water treatment plants. We are implementing an asset management program. In fact, we've already awarded basically a kickoff contract to our consultant you all approved. And we will, this will just be the first phase, really doing a gap analysis, and then we'll move into more implementation. We don't really know how much that is going to cost, and the Water Development Board said that they may fund it for us through loans, but we don't have an answer on that yet. So I budgeted $50,000 in this budget to sort of a midpoint of what we might expect the cost to be and whether we need to pay for it with operations funds. The debt service really is the only revision is primarily due to the City of Round Rock's 2023 SWIFT loan application. And other than that, the the debt service is pretty stable. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. I should say that the operating committee, both the engineers and the financial staff, have reviewed the budget and are recommending approval.
Make a motion to approve 6C as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. 6D, consider a resolution authorizing the president to execute a supplemental contract number 2 for engineering services with Walker Partners for the BCRUA 36-inch underwater replacement pipeline, our favorite thing.
Thank you, Madam President. We couldn't have a meeting without talking about the 36-inch pipeline, but this is really good news. So we are moving forward with getting the replacement pipeline constructed, and this item provides the construction phase services that we're going to need for the support of that construction. We are actually going to advertise for construction proposals on Monday, so that's a definite milestone. So this supplemental amendment number 2 includes construction admin services for Walker Partners. You all approved the pre-procurement of the pipeline materials, which we have done, and we expect to have delivered in December, right when we're going to need them. And so this also includes Walker Partners effort related to that procurement. There's also some design of some improvements that we need to some raw water pipeline valves. As we had worked on that underwater pipeline repair, we found that some of our raw water pipelines, the valves related there, needed some improvements. So we're going to do that as part of this project. So the compensation for the construction phase services and the other items I mentioned is $264,810. So that increases their lump sum amount from $279,593 to $336,760. And the time and materials amount, which is mostly the construction phase services, from $80,000 to $287,661. Aaron Archer can answer any questions that you might have related to this supplemental contract for Walker Partners.
No questions.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I was, I think you said aye. All right. Item 6E, consider a resolution authorizing the president to execute the professional consulting services agreement for Phase 1D water treatment plant expansion constructions materials testing services with Terracon Consultants Incorporated.
Thank you, Madam President. As I mentioned, we were full steam ahead now on our next water treatment plant expansion, Phase 1D. So as part of that construction, we need a company to test our construction materials as concrete's poured and soil is compacted. This is considered a professional service, so we issued a request for statement of qualifications in April. And in May, we opened 8 responsive statement of qualifications. So we were very impressed that we received 8. Pretty good firms overall. So the Walker Partners and the operating committee reviewed the statement of qualifications and evaluated and ranked the firms based on 10% for qualifications and availability, 30% for proposed staff, and 60% for project experience. So based on the evaluation of the SOQs, the staff and the OC recommend Terracon Consultants. They're a good firm. We haven't really used them before. I know the other cities may have, but the proposed materials testing services contract is for $78,630. So the OC and I recommend that we award this contract to Terracon Consultants.
Questions? Okay.
Motion to approve 6E.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Now we come to director closing comments. We'll start with Director Kirtland.
Tonight we talked a lot about employment and quality of workspace for our staff that have worked for many years on this project. It's important in this current employment climate that we treat people with respect and the dignity they deserve. When I hear that we might have some problems with that makes me worry because that's not an environment that I would have an employee work in, and I don't think that I can only speak for Cedar Park and their employees, and I don't think our employees should be in that work environment. So I would appreciate it if, we need to, people should be apologized to when they're spoken down to. And I would hope that we could get through this recent situation and move on, but I also feel like At least the employees in Cedar Park need an apology.
I was just going to say, I'm thankful to Round Rock for taking over the employees and all the work that y'all did to get everybody transitioned over. I know it was a lot to do that, so I appreciate all that hard work.
Just want to thank everybody. I know we're going into hot season, lots of water restrictions and lack of water. So for the staff that are working on that, thank you. I know your jobs are probably getting stressful, and Karen, you and your team, thank you very much. And we're here to support you as we go through the heat of the summer. But with that, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
And thank you to everyone, and thank you for Mayor Delisle and your support. And I think that we're all professionals and adults, and I think that it can be stressful, and it's, water's a contentious topic here in Texas, and I think we're on the right track, but I think as long as we work together and get out of our own way, it's all gonna work out just fine. Thank you to everyone.
I do have one more thing. Because this is your last meeting as our board president, I have a plaque to award to you. And I want to thank you for your professionalism, for your diligence, the way you ask the hard questions, and for your kindness, especially the way you make sure that anybody who comes to our meetings is heard.
Thank you. Well, it's my pleasure. I really didn't give them much of a choice to let me continue, so I'll still be here for 2 more years. So, thank you. We are adjourned, and Matt gets to take over next month. So.